If you have ever felt a sudden, inexplicable wave of guilt while looking into your cat's eyes, your intuition might be picking up on something your conscious mind has missed. As cat owners, we pride ourselves on providing the absolute best for our feline companions, buying them the finest organic food, the most elaborate scratching posts, and the softest beds money can buy. Yet beneath that fluffy exterior lies one of the most evolutionarily complex, emotionally sensitive predators on the planet, possessing a psychological blueprint that is wildly different from our own. Feline behaviorists and veterinary psychologists have recently uncovered a heartbreaking reality that many well-meaning owners are completely blind to, revealing that some of our most deeply ingrained, everyday habits are causing our cats profound psychological distress and emotional pain. Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating, sometimes uncomfortable world of feline psychology to uncover the innocent, everyday mistakes you might be making that are slowly breaking your cat's heart, and exactly how you can rewrite your daily routine to restore their trust and happiness. To truly understand how we might be inadvertently hurting our companions, we must first dismantle a massive misconception that has plagued cat ownership for decades, which is the myth that cats are completely independent, solitary creatures who do not form deep, emotional bonds with their humans. In reality, modern veterinary science has proven that cats form secure attachments to their owners that closely mirror the bonds between human infants and their parents. Because they view us as their primary source of safety and emotional stability, our actions have a monumental impact on their psychological well-being. One of the most common ways we accidentally shatter this sense of security is through the way we handle our departures and arrivals. Imagine coming home after a long, exhausting day at the office, seeing your beautiful cat waiting by the door, and immediately scooping them up in a massive, restrictive bear hug while showering them with high-pitched praise. While this feels like an act of pure love to a human, to a cat, this sudden explosion of intense energy can feel incredibly overwhelming, invasive, and unpredictable. Feline psychology dictates that cats thrive on a sense of autonomy and control over their immediate environment. When we force physical affection upon them, the moment we walk through the door, rather than allowing them to approach us on their own terms, we create a subtle undercurrent of anxiety around our arrivals. Over time, this unpredictable behavior can cause a cat to withdraw, making them feel like their personal boundaries are constantly being violated by the person they trust the most. Moving on to another deeply ingrained habit that could be silently damaging your relationship with your cat, we have to look closely at how we maintain their most sacred, private spaces. It is no secret that cats are meticulously clean animals, spending up to a third of their waking hours grooming themselves to perfection. However, many owners fail to realize that this obsession with cleanliness extends entirely to their bathroom environment. When we neglect the litter box, letting it sit unscooped for days or relying on heavy, synthetic artificial fragrances to mask the odor, we are actively subjecting our cats to a sensory nightmare. A cat's sense of smell is roughly 14 times stronger than a human's, meaning that a scented litter box to them feels like being trapped inside a small, unventilated room filled with toxic perfume fumes. When a cat is forced to use a dirty or overpowering litter box, it triggers a severe stress response, making them feel vulnerable, exposed, and profoundly disrespected in their own home. They begin to associate this vital daily ritual with discomfort and fear, which often leads to them avoiding the box altogether. Sadly, when a heartbroken cat expresses this distress by urinating on the carpet or the bed, owners frequently mistake it for spite or bad behavior, punishing the cat and further fracturing an already fragile emotional bond. This brings us naturally to another devastating mistake that can utterly break a cat's spirit, which is the use of negative reinforcement or physical punishment. Because cats have evolved as both solitary hunters and prey animals, their brains are hypertuned to threats in their environment. They do not possess the cognitive capacity to understand the concept of discipline or punishment the way a human or even a dog might. When you yell at a cat, squirt them with a water bottle, or physically shoo them away for scratching the sofa or jumping on the kitchen counter, your cat does not connect the punishment to their action. Instead, they simply see you, their ultimate protector, as an unpredictable, terrifying aggressor who is suddenly attacking them for reasons they cannot comprehend. This instantly shatters their sense of environmental security, triggering a cascade of stress hormones like cortisol that can permanently alter their brain chemistry. A punished cat quickly learns to fear their owner, viewing your hands not as a source of soothing comfort and affection, but as a potential weapon. This psychological trauma runs incredibly deep, turning a once confident, loving pet into a hypervigilant, anxious shadow of themselves who constantly hides away in fear. Another surprising way we might be breaking our cat's heart involves a subtle sensory detail that many of us never even think twice about, and that is the use of bells on their collars. It is entirely understandable why so many owners put a jingling bell on their cat, whether it is to track their movements around a large house or to protect local wildlife from their hunting instincts. However, from a feline psychological perspective, a collar bell is nothing short of a psychological torture device. As specialized ambush predators, cats rely heavily on the element of absolute silence to feel safe and confident in their territory. Furthermore, their ears are incredibly sensitive acoustic instruments designed to detect the high-frequency squeaks of rodents from immense distances. When you place a bell right underneath their ears, every single movement they make, from grooming to walking to simply shifting their weight in sleep, is accompanied by a loud, sharp, metallic jingle. This constant, unavoidable noise completely floods their auditory system, making it impossible for them to listen for potential dangers or feel truly relaxed. It creates a state of perpetual chronic stress, leaving the cat feeling perpetually exposed and unable to escape a noise that is quite literally strapped to their throat, slowly eroding their mental peace day by day. While sensory overload can deeply distress a cat, a lack of appropriate sensory stimulation can be just as emotionally damaging, leading us to the widespread mistake of environmental stagnation. Many indoor cat owners mistakenly believe that providing a safe, warm indoor environment is enough to keep a cat happy. But a cat's brain is wired for the thrill of the hunt, requiring regular mental and physical challenges to stay emotionally healthy. When a cat is left alone in a sterile environment with no views of the outside world, no interactive toys, and absolutely no daily playtime with their owner, they fall into a profound, crushing state of boredom that often manifests as feline depression. They might spend their entire day sleeping, not out of contentment, but out of absolute lethargy and hopelessness. When we ignore their inherent need for predatory play, refusing to engage them with feather wands or laser pointers that mimic the movement of prey, we are denying them the very essence of what makes them a cat. This lack of engagement makes them feel entirely forgotten and isolated, leading to a heartbreaking decline in their overall zest for life. Speaking of isolation, another profound emotional wound we can accidentally inflict on our cat centers around how we manage our own busy, modern schedules. Because cats do not greet us with the explosive, frantic energy of a dog, it is incredibly easy to assume that they do not care whether we are home or not. This couldn't be further from the truth. Cats are incredibly perceptive observers of human routine, tracking our schedules down to the exact minute. When we suddenly change our routines, work excessively long hours, or come home only to immediately ignore them in favor of staring at our phones or laptops, our cats experience a deep sense of emotional neglect. They will often try to communicate this loneliness through subtle, heartbreaking behaviors, such as quietly sitting directly on your computer keyboard, walking across your papers, or letting out soft, plaintive meows from across the room. When we repeatedly push them away, ignore their gentle bids for connection, or lock them out of the bedroom at night, we are actively rejecting their attempts to bond with us. This continuous rejection can cause them to experience severe separation anxiety, leaving them feeling profoundly unloved and abandoned in the very space they share with us. Another common household mistake that deeply disrupts a cat's psychological well-being involves the way we set up their core biological resources, specifically their food and water stations. In the wild, a feline would never dream of drinking water that is located directly next to their freshly killed prey, because decomposing meat can easily contaminate nearby water sources. This deep-seated evolutionary instinct remains incredibly potent in our domestic cats today. Yet, standard pet bowls are almost always sold as a matching set designed to be placed side by side. When a cat is forced to drink water that sits right next to their food bowl, their primal brain signals that the water is potentially unsafe, causing them to drink far less than their bodies actually require. This can lead to chronic, low-level dehydration, which poses severe risks to their renal health over time. Furthermore, placing food and water bowls in high-traffic, noisy areas like hallways or right next to loud household appliances can make a cat feel incredibly anxious while eating. Because eating and drinking require them to lower their guard, doing so in an insecure location makes them feel intensely vulnerable to ambush, turning what should be a comforting mealtime into a stressful, high-alert ordeal. Beyond the physical setup of their resources, we must also examine the psychological impact of how we handle changes within the household, particularly when it comes to rearranging furniture or moving to a new home. Cats are profoundly territorial creatures who map out their world using complex scent markers known as pheromones. By rubbing their cheeks and bodies against the corners of walls, sofas, and doorways, they are essentially deposit peace notes that signify the environment is safe and secure. When we suddenly decide to replace an old couch, rearrange an entire room, or deep clean their favorite scratching posts with harsh chemical detergents, we are completely wiping out their carefully constructed emotional map. To a human, it is just a fresh, clean room. To a cat, it feels like waking up in a completely alien, hostile territory where all their personal history has been entirely erased. This sudden loss of familiar scent markers can trigger an intense existential crisis for a cat, making them feel incredibly displaced and insecure within their own home, leading to a massive spike in stress-related behaviors. But perhaps one of the most heartbreaking ways we inadvertently damage our bond with our cats is by completely misinterpreting their subtle, non-verbal expressions of pain or discomfort. Unlike humans or dogs, who are often very vocal when they are hurting, cats have evolved to aggressively hide any signs of physical weakness to avoid attracting predators. When a cat is dealing with arthritis, dental pain, or an underlying illness, they will not cry out or limp around the house. Instead, their pain manifests as subtle behavioral shifts, such as becoming unusually grumpy, avoiding being petted, sleeping in strange, low-to-the-ground hiding spots, or suddenly refusing to jump onto their favorite high perches. When an owner dismisses these changes as just a bad mood, aging, or laziness, the cat is left to suffer in absolute silence, completely isolated in their agony. They feel entirely unprotected by the human they depend on for survival, creating a profound emotional disconnect that can permanently alter their relationship with you. Fortunately, once you understand these intricate facets of feline psychology, you possess the incredible power to completely transform your cat's emotional world and heal any hidden wounds. By slowing down your arrivals, respecting their physical boundaries, keeping their environment rich with scent markers and stimulation, and listening closely to the quiet whispers of their behavior, you can build a profound, unshakable bond of mutual trust and love. Your cat doesn't need a perfect owner, but they do desperately need an understanding one who is willing to look at the world through their unique, sensitive eyes. If you want to discover even more about what your cat is secretly trying to tell you through their mysterious daily habits, make sure to share your own cat experiences in the comments below, subscribe to the channel, and click on the video appearing on your screen right now, where we break down the secret language of cat tales and what they are desperately trying to warn you about.